Hello and welcome to another weekly update. I hope you're doing well. A couple of things to talk about this week and a couple of things that are new and that have happened, and also some kind of longer reads, some of which hark back to some older stuff and some training and stuff as well. It's good to start the new year off with some new knowledge and new information. So yeah, let's get into it. So first up, I talked a little bit about this last week. It's around UI design guidelines for Microsoft Teams developers. So last week I talked about a new Teams UI kit that was available and around and you could download and look at. This week there's been like an update to that and some more kind of tools that have added to it and more things that are available. So I've done a blog post about it. There's really three new things that go on top of the UI kit that I talked about last week. So the first of those is a React library of controls that implement a lot of the things that are in that UI kit actually. So if you're looking at the UI kit and thinking this is great design, but it's really meant for designers, how am I going to have to implement this? Do I have to go and build all these controls? No, you don't. Microsoft has done that for you. There's an entire library of components that you can just reference and use. As long as you use React, then you're all good. It's all in GitHub, so you can go and look at it all there, and that's also got the README page there to tell you how to bring it into your application, how to use it. So that's really good. So that's really the developer's implementation of the stuff I talked about last week, which was the kind of designer's guidelines. This is the developer implementation of that. And they say it implements many of the designs that are described and shown in the Teams UI kit. So that's good. So that's one thing. That's great. Another thing is a UI library playground. It's a bit like an application that just kind of can be used as a showcase of all the different UI controls that are in that pack and that are in the design guidance even, and it just allows you to flip through and look at them and see what they do, see how they act. The couple of really nice things I like about this UI playground. The first is that you can look at them in different modes. So they've mapped to the Microsoft Teams mode, so light mode, dark mode, high and contrast mode. So you can do all of that, which is great. And the other thing that I really like is some of the accessibility features that they've added. And there's two of those really. There's an accessibility tab, which shows you all the ways in which each particular control has passed a number of accessibility tests. So whether it's ARIA attributes, whether it's discernible text, whether it's making sure that every ID attribute value is unique, it lists all those out. So you can be sure that the components you're adding are accessible. And the other thing that I really like actually is an emulator for color blindness. So you can literally toggle on various color blindness conditions. And there's, like, I'm looking at the screen now. Let me just show you what I'm looking at. So this is from my blog post. I just took a screenshot from this is the UI library, like playground thing that you can go through all the different controls on the left and just see how they render. But this is what the thing I'm talking about that I really like, the ability to just toggle on one of these different conditions. And then view each of the controls in a different way so you can see how they look. So yeah, I really like that. I think that's really cool. I think it's a really good idea for driving, more accessible applications. And finally, there's a sample application as well, a Microsoft Teams sample app. Now, this comes so close to being amazing. Let me explain. So there's a code sample in GitHub, so you can go and see all of the code for this sample application. And the idea is you take this sample application onto your machine, you fork it, and you build it, and then you serve it, and then you go and ngrok it, and then you tie it, create a Teams application to go and look at it, and then you have your sample application. I would love Microsoft to go and do all that work for me and just put it in the App Store as the sample app, so I don't have to go through all that stuff as a developer, because I'm going to bet that most developers are not going to do this. I'm kind of looking to see whether I should do this and whether I can do this quickly, just like host it up and put it through the App Store quickly. Maybe I'll try and do that. We'll see. But yeah, it would be really, really cool if this was something that Microsoft could put into the Teams App Store as just like the sample application, or maybe even just build it into App Studio somehow. I don't know. Yeah, that's just my feedback, my thoughts. Don't know. Anyway, but this whole thing was really good. It's really good to see these kind of design guidelines, and this is really builds on the stuff I spoke about last week, because it's really what's the word, like concrete implementation guidance or concrete implementation tooling to help you implement some of that design guidance. That's great. Okay, next up, I want to draw your attention to the latest episode of the All About 365 podcast, because it's all about security, and it's really interesting. And it's with Michael Van Horenbeeck, who, if you haven't heard of, you should. He's been around for a while. He's spoken at lots of different events like Ignite. He's expert really in Exchange Hybrid. He's now got a focus on security in the Microsoft 365 space. So really interesting listening to him talk to Jason and Steve all about kind of Microsoft 365 security, their kind of biggest threats, the key tools, what you should do, the steps you should be taking as an owner of a tenant, the wider security suite from Microsoft, how you monitor, how you detect. Lots of really interesting things. So that's definitely worth listening to, I think. Because all three of those gentlemen have so much experience in the Microsoft 365 world. So if they get together and talk for a bit about 45 minutes about Microsoft 365 security, you should definitely listen in on that. All right, next up. So how could I ignore an article with the title of "Microsoft is promising a Star Wars style future"? And it's kind of interesting. This whole blog post is, I'll just show you, here it is. This whole blog post this is from UC Today by Rob Scott, and it's talking about holoportation, which is this thing where you're wearing the HoloLens and people that are not sort of next to you, obviously, kind of like projected next to you. And we've seen this a few times. We've seen some demos of this at some conferences. We've seen some integration with Teams demoed around, sort of a medical space. We've seen people come into our lounges as part of demos, and it's kind of gone quiet again, and it comes and goes, but it's kind of an interesting one, and I thought it was worth talking about because it's worth not forgetting about this technology. And actually, when we look back in, 10 years' time or something, what we might find is that actually the events of 2020 and 2021, with everybody being remote and everybody, not being in the same space together, maybe drove some of this. It's hard to know how real this is and how far forward it is. We've seen demos since 2020, I think. It was Inspire 2020. We saw that, demo done for real, and then it's kind of gone quiet since, I guess. There's not been loads of stuff, but I mean, this would be an amazing year to make some of that stuff a lot more accessible. But I don't know. I think we'll have to see. I think the time is right for it. It's maybe if you'd asked me 2 years ago or a year ago, I'd have said maybe this was a technology looking for a solution. But I think now, we all realize how valuable this technology might be in helping us bridge the gap when we're all so remote from each other and from, our family and people we care for. Actually, this technology maybe does have a solution in mind now. So I think this is definitely one to watch. It's worth reading the blog post as well, just to kind of get you back up to speed with where the technology is at. Who the other players in the market are as well. There's one from Amazon, AWS Wavelength, as well. So I think that's worth a read this weekend, actually, to just kind of get up to speed again with where we are with holoportation. Yeah. And there's a link as well to the official Microsoft Holoportation project, which is kind of interesting. It's got some good videos in it, got some good information in it as well. Yeah, definitely worth looking at all of that. It's interesting looking through this website as well. This is the Microsoft Holoportation project, and there's some really interesting, fun stuff in here, like how they took all their technology and put it into a car and to take it places. Some FAQs. They managed to get the bandwidth down to kind of 30 to 50 Mbps, meaning they can get it inside Wi-Fi, so they could do it inside a moving vehicle, which is kind of ridiculous. Some good videos on their work and stuff as well. So yeah, all this stuff is interesting. So this is all worth a read, I think. Something else that's worth a read, if you're asking me, if you want to do something completely different, and I think this is kind of the time of year as well when people kind of try and make time and space for new hobbies and new interests and learning new things. So if you want to learn something new, and AKS is something that keeps coming up, Kubernetes in Azure. So if that sounds interesting, then you might be interested in this. This is a blog post posted by Gregor Suttie, MVP from Scotland. It's an AKS Zero To Hero. It's a series kind of for everyone, is how it's pitched. He's doing it with Richard Hooper. And this is meant to take you from knowing nothing about AKS up to, knowing enough to be dangerous. So it's... The idea is to take an existing project and just deploy it to AKS and then cover kind of all the areas that you need. It's all done really kind of nicely produced, nice videos. The code is all on GitHub as well, so you can follow along. So this is really good. And episode 1 is out now, posted a couple of days ago, so you can get started as a video for episode 1. So yeah. This sounds really good. I'm going to try and do this weekend, and because I could definitely know more about this stuff, and it's a really interesting space. So I'm going to use this as my kind of learning thing this month, and yeah, that sounds really good. All right, I think that's everything I wanted to talk about. Again, it's a funny kind of week. I think people are still coming back to work, even though it's nearly the end of January. There's a lot of the US, I think, still kind of feeling their way back into the world of work. They've got plenty of events going on there at the moment. And then also, I think we're all slightly distracted by world events at the moment. But there's lots of interesting things coming in 2021, I think. We've got dates out for Ignite now as well in March. So plenty of announcements as well, I think, that will be coming. I think it's shaping up to be a good year. That's how I'm feeling about it anyway. I'm feeling positive. So we'll see. All right, that's everything from me. Have a great weekend, whatever it is you're doing, and I will talk to you again next time.